Ayu, he is really and royally entertaining this crowd. You know, if they're not singing and dancing and having a party atmosphere before, they certainly are now, because this is what they want. They want to see a Rwandan cyclist on his own off the front of the peloton.
Yep, take the picture quick with lots of star riders behind him. That's the way. But yeah, Manizabayo is going for it. 26 kilometres an hour is a decent old pace when you're on these cobbles. Just coming up to the crest, and we'll come up and over the top and then start heading back down. Brian, in 23 kilometres time, there'll only be 200 kilometres left.
Yeah, look at these riders. They know what to expect. They've done this before. Sometimes in stage races they have big long stages, especially the Giro d'Italia in the past. But just looking at Garcia Perna from Spain, that's been a big effort, especially early on in this race. Look at the riders at the front. They're having a chat with each other. Garcia Perna, head down, trying to come across.
Still going for it. Bless him. Meanwhile, this man, Manizabayo, is about to be tagged. Double elbow flip there. Can't quite see who the Slovenian is who's on the front. He's trying to ask for some help. Not going to get any. Belgium absolutely locked onto the wheel. Listen to this man being called to the top into this fan zone.
He was here yesterday.
I love that guy. Whoever he is as a line announcer, I want him to come to my next birthday party.
Well, the thing is, he did it every lap yesterday, and he's doing it every lap today. I know as a commentator sometimes when you do 4.5 hours commentary yesterday, it takes a little bit of effect in your larynx, but he has an amazing larynx.
Undiminished. I don't know. Maybe he's a cheerleader elsewhere as well. Great Britain then, just dwelling on them momentarily. Pidcock and Onley, clearly they are going to be the principals. Joe Blackmore, oh hello. Do you know there's never a good time for this, Brian? But you know, if you're going to have some bad luck, have it early.
Yeah, of course. In fact, yesterday we didn't see any major problems, punctures. The conditions here are fantastic. I think there was a little bit of rain earlier on today, but you know that we can clearly see it's great conditions at the moment.
Oh, and a couple as well, I'm afraid. Ollie Knight is one of those, and on the deck, can't quite see who it is for Belgium. We'll get downstairs in a moment, I'm sure. That is a nightmare, a touch of wheels, and it can happen at any time, and it's happened right now. Nothing benign about this, I'm afraid, and Van Wilder is one of those that they are struggling to get comfortable. To be honest, let the rider do it himself. Trying to manage that kind of situation. Let's have a look at it, Brian. Here we go.
Yeah, hard to see from here. It looks as a touch of wheels, and then a secondary one in the right-hand side. Just looking to see is that Marc Soler there in the left-hand side for Spain. Yeah, Marc Soler for Spain. That's a big loss for Juan Ayuso, a very, very talented bike rider, and unfortunately, when you crash this fast, don't know what happened, couldn't see from where we were, but you know, a few nations caught amongst the casualties here, unfortunately.
Trying to get his bike straightened out, but he's clearly not ready to remount. There's a whole sequence of burgers on display here from him, I'm afraid, and he's saying, don't touch me, just leave me alone, let me settle myself down. I mean, the help here is trying to help, but to be honest, riders just need some gathering time sometimes, don't they, Brian?
Yeah, it's really not ideal, the situation here. You know, one of the riders that crashed here is obviously Bjorn Coates, the young rider from Picnic Post NL. I just saw the Picnic Post NL and I thought, oh no, I hope it's not Oscar Ornley, who you've just mentioned. In fact, talking about Oscar Ornley, it's his mum's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Mum, but gosh, that did not look nice at all. Well, it can happen at any time, and we've still got a relatively packed group when they're coming up together. When you get this stretch out and then a recompression, Brian, there is often a call for manoeuvring, but you never know where such a touch of wheels is going to happen within a bunch. But it's more likely to happen if indeed the asphalt is at a premium. when there's a lot of riders very close together, it takes just one small mistake, one little bit of collision, a little bit of hooking of bars, you just never know, rubbing of shoulders, wheels, it gets reflected into a bigger incident, and some have really been through the mincer. Look at this.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say whether it's a touch of bars or coming together of wheels or coming together of handlebar. Very difficult to see from the pictures. It happened in the left, and a secondary movement in the right-hand side caused this with Van Wilder. Van Wilder, well, third in the time trial. He'll be deeply missed by Belgium today, and there's another rider just in front from Italy as well. So a couple of the strong nations have already lost some really important riders.
Yeah, Van Wilder looks hobbled. Soler looks very second-hand. Alaphilippe is out. So Belgium, France, Slovenia already struggling, and it's very, very early days here.
Do you know what? As a young man, I played the trumpet. And I always used to think, I wish I was a drummer, because as a trumpet you put a little bit more energy in because you're having to blow
all the time.
And I used to look at the drummers and think, what am I doing playing the trumpet? I should learn to play the drums.
Oh, there we are. It is done, I'm afraid, for Bjorn Kurt. Absolutely roughed up out there. Not good, Brian.
No, there's not a lot you can do when you come down heavily. I think Van Wilder will be the next in the pits. The World Championships is not a race. When you come down this heavily, what else can you do? You can suffer through. Van Wilder is here to help Evenepoel. He's kind of one of the right-hand men for Belgium. He'll be a big loss. He's continuing on in this race, but I think it's forlorn. I don't think, even if he gets back, he'll be much help for Remco Evenepoel today.
Let's see. When you're on a small circuit such as this, Brian, as well, you're never that far away from help, or indeed an escape option, I guess you might say. But equally, if you're not at your best, and another shake of the head here, I'm afraid, and Marc Soler, that is another big name that is clearly not going to be taking much further part in this. It's a real shame, because he's such a live wire and a great entertainer, Soler, isn't he?
I said at the time when he was there, for Ayuso, in my mind, is a major contender, and to lose someone like this, a teammate for the moment for Spain, trade teammate as well, although Ayuso's gone on to Lido Trek. It's Marc Soler could have been a big help to Juan Ayuso.
Not anymore. Back to the pits. Shake of the head says everything. So we've lost Alaphilippe, we've lost Marc Soler, we've lost Bjorn Kurt, we've lost quite a few out there, and there'll be more, I'm afraid, to go. Nobody said this was easy.
It just goes to show you, Carlton, just a moment of maybe lack of concentration, touching the wheels, locking the handlebars, and you're talking about 3 or 4 good riders there that have been hobbled, and 3 or 4 teams, the nations. It could happen to the best riders in this peloton.
Agreed, entirely. And unfortunately, the attrition rate is including some very, very good riders that would have been part of the battle plans for a lot of our principal teams here. Look at this, you take yourself a roundabout. This is the Kimi Harura roundabout park. How lovely is that? I mean, we love the Arc de Triomphe, but what a spectacular rendition of a thing to do with a roundabout. There's a few in Glasgow as well, but we'll talk about the empty bottles of Irn-Bru in the middle. Some of them half empty. I've got to tell you that sometimes it's not Irn-Bru that's in them, but anyway, let's move on. 2 minutes and 16 is our... That's 2 minutes and 16. 216. 2 minutes and 34, I should say, is the gap to a decent breakaway, but it's almost a holding pattern at the moment. And within... we're circulating, Brian, around about 24 minutes for this lap. In fact, we've got our last lap time for us. We'll have a look in a moment. We will be racking that up as a graphic for you. But it kind of gets into a sort of a vortex whirlwind. It gets quicker and quicker and quicker, it seems, towards the end. Here's Jai Hindley, got himself back here after a very brief technical. Super strong team from Australia. They have Hindley, they've got Jay Vine, Michael Storer, we have Luke Plapp as well. Michael Matthews is here. Bling is doing his thing.
Yeah, but he's had a crash in training before this race. He's got a few bandages and he's kind of hobbling around a little bit. So he is a rider that has featured in the past in the World Championships, but I don't think let's see how he gets on. But if you've had a crash in training before this and he's limping, then I don't think he'll be a major feature in this race.
Great to have somebody with that level of experience, though, Brian, and almost as a talisman.
Exactly, it's good to have him here, and when he is here, unfortunately having that wee incident in training, we don't know too much detail about it, but looking at the front, I thought this would be purely just Slovenia on the front, but Belgium are clearly up for this with Vermeers, but also United States, yeah.
Nielsen Paulus, I guess disappointing that we had indeed that cancellation. But with Quinn Simmons here as well, they've got an option. He has turned himself into one of the feistiest indeed contenders. Van Wilde does not look great, and I think this is me just going over to the exit road. I think that was the sign here, still testing himself out. He stayed on the bike, but surely it can't be for much longer because apart from anything else.
I think everyone's an underdog compared to Tadej, aren't they? So, but yeah, it's a nice course for me, and I think we saw in the women's race it can be an unpredictable race. So I think it's a nice one for me.
The only difference is that on your course there'll be the Mount Kigali, the Mur de Kigali. That could make a real difference.
Yeah, I think it's such a hard course anyway, whether it's in or out. It's I'm not sure it would really change the race too much, but 100% it's definitely going to be a bit of a focal point, and it's just a super hard climb.
Did you wake up with the dream of being world champion?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
I like that. I also like Ben Healy. I think he's brilliant. He's brilliant for cycling, and he's made plenty of Irish eyes smiling in his direction.
Well, Ireland have done it before. I'm going to say this in a possibly surprising fashion.
Go on then.
Well, I've just said it in a surprising fashion.
No, you haven't. You've got to do it in a surprising fashion. What are you going to do? Put on a tutu? Go on.
No, he did it.
Oh,
in
I see.
A surprising fashion.
I thought you said, I am going to say this in a surprising fashion. I was thinking, how are you going to say this in a surprising fashion? But I misunderstood you.
Yeah, you did. Not for the first time. You did. With Stephen Roach, he was there supporting Sean Kelly. Sean Kelly was the rider that he was looking after during that World Championships. It came into the final throw of the day, and he went through a gap in the inside and became world champion. A good world champion, Stephen Roach, quality bike rider. He won the triple that year with the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. So you could say that he's a good world champion, but he won it in a kind of surprising fashion.
Well, yeah, Sean Kelly was the year that Greg LeMond won it for the second time. Greg LeMond had been saying all day, apparently, to Sean Kelly, who was in Grenoble, I believe, that he was feeling terrible and his legs were bad. And he found his legs through the day. And I'm hoping that such a thing happens to Tom Pidcock today and other riders that may be feeling a little bit out of sorts, that don't be tempted to go out. The race can come to you, can't it, sometimes?
It can, but I'm not too sure in this course, Carlton. There's no hiding in this course. Normally you come to a World Championships and just try and hide, just get through the day and feel better and better, because you're talking about a 6.5 hour shift here, and not everybody feels great for 6.5 hours on a bike. I don't know anybody that has.
What about on the mic?
Yeah, I don't think anybody even in the mic has felt great for doing 6.5 hours commentary.
Come on, Brian, my company, surely.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip over that and continue. The situation is you have mentally, just look at Pogačar here. He's just small gear, drifting.
Did you see a few moments ago, he moderated his entire team. It was like, right, let's get together, have a chat. We're doing too much here. Well, let's see what happens to the gap, shall we?
Well, I'm surprised that America actually riding. They've got 5 riders here, and I know Quinn Simmons Well, he did it as a junior in Harrogate, but to put excuse me, it looks like Will Barter here on the front. To put Will Barter on the front here, 5 riders. When you're up against Slovenia with 9, you're up against Belgium with 8. I think down to 7 now, with Van Wilder gone. But it's quite a bold statement to come and ride at the front when I don't think they really have to do this.
I think the word there from Pogačar and Slovenia was like, well, if they want to ride this, let them ride this. Here's the Kigali golf course. Have you been round yet, Brian?
No, I wish. I quite fancy. I'm not. Everybody thinks you Scottish do play golf. The first question I get is,
what's your handicap?
You Scottish?
And
yes.
you say Carlton Kirby.
Yes, of course I do, all the time. You Scottish? Yeah, we're from Glasgow. Rangers or Celtic? I went, neither. I support St Mirren. And they go, who? And I just pass over that part. But they say, golfing's great over there. Do you play golf? No. I've played a couple of games in my life. That's about it. But the thing that I'd be interested in is that green rubber track, 2.4 kilometres round the golf course, and I fancy doing a few laps. Maybe not at this altitude, because the first time when after retiring from cycling, I get coaxed in to do the New York Marathon in 2008, and I got asked just the week before the Tour de France, so I went over to the Tour de France as a guest of one of the teams, and my first run ever was in Alpe d'Huez up to the airport. I tell you what, I could feel it burning in my lungs, and I thought, I can't do this. But yeah, I did 3 months later.
And that's when you took up table tennis.
Ping pong.
Vinny McGavie, superhero when it comes to Africa cycling. Not his kind of course at all today, but he's certainly good enough to keep up, at least for the time being. There we are, thumbs up. Good to see him. Good to see him. Do you know what? He's got a real sense of authority, and I just think maturity about him now. We've watched him come up through the ranks as a youngster. He's grown into the role of a hero of Africa cycling really well.
He is, but I fear a little bit with Biniam Girmay that I've worked with the first African team it went to. Is this Eric again?
Yeah,
I worked with the first African team that went to the World Championships, and you need that hunger. And I think we saw many years ago when the Iron Curtain came down, and the Russians never became the kind of dominant force they were in kind of amateur cycling, and I'm not too sure if Biniam Girmay still has that same fire in his belly this year than he did last year, and I hope he finds that fire back, because he needs that fire to continue to do what he did last year by green jerseys, three Tour de France stages, that magnificent Gent-Wevelgem one. We need that Biniam Girmay back.
Mali, I'm afraid, are done. Both Dano and Diarra have now decided to call it a day, or maybe they've been gated, because if there's a chance of being tagged here on this circuit, then you are taken out. But what an amazing kit that is as well. Just looking at the Beehive, which is our convention centre here in Kigali. Absolutely beautiful building. Sense of modernity, but also a nod to the past as well.
Well, just to let you know that it's 15 minutes they get taken off, but the last rider is one of the Mali riders, and he's at 14 minutes and 52 seconds across the finishing line the last time. So most riders are climbing off. Red Walters has climbed off. He was at 12 minutes and 25 seconds down.
There you are. You're beyond the halfway margin of the average pace for the stage. What is our pace at
kera
the
Bakame
moment. Let me just
Well, last
get
lap
the
it was
chart.
40,
birahwana
just over 43
birabana
kilometres
bishyira
an hour.
kera
Yeah.
ariko Bakame
Well,
ikabazwa
not
n'uko impyisi
hanging
yuje
around, but
ubukungu
it's
bukeye
as an
Bakame
average
igira
from the
impyisi iti
beginning,
reka ducuruze
accounting
impu
for
ubukungu bwawe burusheho
just
kwiyongera
after the
ndetse
flag.
ungurize
It was a
n'ibintu
little
byo
bit modest
gutangiza
before our breakaway
nzajye
went up the road,
mpungukira
but yeah, we're
impyisi
just under
irabyemera
41 kilometres an hour.
bitangira gucuruza
Is
impu
where we are
zimaze
seated
kugwira
at
bijya
the
gucuruza mu
moment.
mahanga inyungu ikabikwa kwa Bakame
42
Bakame
and a
imaze
bit,
gukungahara
42.3
kwitwaza
kilometres as an
bwa
average so
bucuruzi
far. So
burahagarara
we covered
ariko impyisi ntiyabyitaho
57, 58
hashize
kilometres,
iminsi
and as
Bakame
it
irazinduka no
stands,
kwa mpyisi iti
we're having some
yemwe abo
pushes
kwa
out.
mpyisi
And if
mwaramutseho
Eric
mpyisi iti
Manizabio, I think
gakeye
he
baka
liked the party
Bakame
that welcomed
irihanganiye
him
ariko cora iti
the last
nta
time up
miramukire
the
yanjye
rise at the top
baharaye
of those cobbles,
baducukuye
actually. And you start to hear
badusohoye
our
ntibadusigira na
friend of
busa
the PA with the
ubwo impyisi igwa
leather
mu kantu
larynx
mbese
about
isa
to start
n'ikubiswe
screaming
n'inkuba
them over yet again.
Bakame ibonye
This
ko impyisi
front
ibuze
group
ahirigitira
on 7%.
irayishukashuka
Plenty of
yibwira ko
Union
izayishyura
Jacks here, the Union
Bakame
flag
iragenda
upon a
ifukura
jack staff
icyuzi
known as the
yororeramo
Union
amafi
Jack.
imaze gukura ikajya ijya kuroba
Correct to
yirira
call it a Union Jack,
hashize
the
ukwezi
Union
impyisi
flag.
ijya
No,
kwishyuza
people
Bakame ibintu
always
byayo
write in and say, "You've got it wrong,
Bakame
okay."
yakira
No.
neza yikoza munsi y'urugo iroba
Okay,
amafi
for bringing
10
the golden
iraza
helmet up
irayateka
towards the
iyavanamo
fore.
umufu uryoshye cyane maze yegereza
It wasn't a
impyisi
humiliation
umwanya
of
muto
Teddy Pogacar
impyisi
because Remco
irakoma
Evenepoel was
indege
absolutely in his pomp on the time
irangije
trial, but
iti
to find
mbese
2.5
shaho Bakame
minutes
ibintu biryoshye bitya
and
ubikura he
basically just tag
Bakame
Tadej Pogacar was
irahaguruka ijya
something
kuyereka icyuzi
incredible,
cyayo
and
iki
Frank Van den Broek
ugende ufukure
is what's
nk'iki
broken for
amafi
Frank.
azimezamo
He gets himself back on.
wari
Is it just
igeze
a
muhira
little bit of
sinakubwira ukuntu
misgearing? Maybe
yarimbaguye
just a
imisozi mu
ship's
mwanya
chain.
muto
We've seen chains
imaze
chucked off on this
imaze
rough
kuyoboramo
surface,
amazi
Brian.
We've seen a few,
twitegereza ko amafi
especially
yazamo
to the entry.
iraheba
I think, unfortunately, for
igiye
the
kwa
young Scot,
Bakame
Erin
yayirakariye cyane
Brisbane from Glasgow,
igezeyo Bakame
she
isomya
had
ku
it
nkanga
in the junior
z'akataraboneka
time trial,
kwibuka
and
icyari
the same for the
cyayizinduye
junior road race. And
iragasanga
if
imaze
you chop your
kuryoherwa
chain
cyane
or pull your foot
bituma
out or
we
anything on this climb,
ibise byo
you lose a
ntabikwiye
considerable amount of time. But
Bakame iti
yeah,
ukagira rwa
look, I
rutoki
don't think it was
rwose
a
ukabura
humiliation
inzoga
for
y'ubuki
Pogacar,
kurusha
possibly
igenda
the first time
utemagura
he's
za
ever
nsina
been
zose
caught in a
amakakama
time trial.
azivuyemo uyashyire mu
But
kabyindi
he
amarimo
finished
ibyumweru
fourth.
bitatu
He's
azasoma
only
inkuru
just over a
y'imbere
second off the
impyisi
podium.
iragenda
I just
ibigenza
think
uko Bakame
Evenepoel
yayibwiye
was
ibyumweru
totally
bitatu
dialed
bishize
into the
igotomeraho
effort, and
maze ururimi
you know, was
rurababuka
head and shoulders
inkanga
above everybody
zirakinguka
else.
Well, there's no shame in
umujinya
finishing in
urayica
the top
ifata
five,
umufuka no
but
kwa
the
Bakame
expectations were that
ntiyazuyaza
Pogacar
ihita
would
igafata
indeed
igashyira muri wa
maybe
mufuka
possibly
ngo ijye kukaroha mu
take
mwanga
the wrestle to Remco Evenepoel. Different, of course, perceptions when it comes to this kind of distance. And as you said, Tadej Pogacar, if his head's in the right place, then he's absolutely bang on. There is a sense that after a few sort of withdrawals, especially a late one for La Vuelta, which caused all kinds of problems for his UE Team Emirates team. But here he's well supported by former rivals, the likes of Primoz Roglic within his team, Luka Mezgec. It's a very, very strong unit that Slovenia have brought to the party. They can manufacture Marshall, if you like, with 9 riders. That's a big team. It's the biggest team we've got here. 8 plus the champion, which of course is Tadej Pogacar. I think he likes the rainbow stripes. It used to be described as a burden, Brian, but he's carried them extraordinarily well.
Yeah, he loves them. He loves his Slovenian national jersey as well. Although out training to try and kind of be under the radar a little bit round about the Monaco area. He does wear just plain clothing, but he loves, winning races in certain jerseys, whether it's a leader's jersey in the Tour de France, whether it's the World Championships jersey. And for sure he's come here to try and win again, and he's always thinking about creating history, and his whole team are here to support him.
We talk about the burden. Better explain myself, really. It used to be that when you wore the rainbow stripes, that essentially you were a target, and some riders felt that they were dialed out of success in other races because they were almost immediately jumped onto, and their attacks and their effectiveness, really, as a winner. You stand out. Simple as that. So it was regarded as something of a curse that would stop you winning other races to carry the world champions bands. But I think Peter Sagan possibly put that to bed. And a few others as well wore them with great pride and efficacy. And Tadej Pogacar, it hasn't diminished him at all, it seems.
No, because there's not a lot you can do when he goes on the attack. It's as simple as that. So for a lot of riders that have been world champion, yeah, the cost of the stripes is because you kind of stand out in that jersey, and then you're expected to do more, and that's the problem. You are world champion. Wherever you go in a race, you're seen. Whenever you go on the attack, you're chased down, and whenever you're in front in a breakaway, you're expected to do more. It's as simple as that.
Like Kivu. Always love the optimism of a long boat. It's actually for moving goods around the place. But when you see a long boat going out fishing, you think, well, are they going to fill that with fish? And you go out in a massive boat, and you come back with a tiddler. That's what you had a big boat. Thought you were going to fill it. That's the teasing you get. Meanwhile, teasing us into expectations, I think. Slovenia. They've not been that far off the front. Van Wilde has indeed called it a day. It was clear that was going to happen. Some injuries due to nudges of wheels. And for those of you that are perhaps joining us a little bit late, a lot of the major teams have actually suffered some significant blows to indeed their roster. Spain have lost Marc Soler. Van Wilde you have just seen. For Belgium, great time trials would have been part of the engine room to try and help Remco Evenepoel to rainbow stripes here. So he's lost. So Evenepoel has lost Van Wilde. Bjorn Court is no longer at the disposal of Tom Pidcock, who looks a little bit second-hand himself as we look at Evenepoel as he crosses the line here with his golden helmet. So Kjort, I'm afraid, is also out for Great Britain after really going through the tumble dryer, it seems, or indeed the rock roller. I'm afraid it was a rocky end to him as he went for a roll after a touch of wheels. There's a few others as well that have indeed been gated. Quite a roster, actually, of those that come into this very, very hyper-elite roster. Possibly just a little bit with something lacking, but it's great to see so many nations represented here. I did love seeing Sao Tome and Principe, a nation that I wasn't very familiar with, I must admit, but an island nation. Just great. Started to look it up myself and thought, gosh, it looks absolutely wonderful, as it has been here. This doesn't look good, Brian.
No, I'm not at all. French dropping, not like flies, but already Alaphilippe down, and yeah, not good for Barret here.
Louis Barret would have been one of the hopes. I think very much an outside hope was Alaphilippe, but not well. The Tour of Rwanda itself, of course, is a spectacular race, and indeed it has entertained some part of the UCI roster. It was the success of this race and others on the African continent that have, of course, made the UCI ponder the likelihood and indeed the effectiveness of bringing the World Championships to this great continent. We are here, and it couldn't have happened without the Tour of Rwanda. Cycling festival every single year, and now they of course have the right to host the World Championships. They've done it brilliantly. Minute 52 is our break. We are still playing with our circuit, and we are going to do so for quite a few more laps, and it goes on. Serbia, the latest to declare here, I'm afraid, and it's Onyan Ilic riding on his own, so very much a diminished roster. Now it's non-existent with just the solitary rider. Quite a few riders here, they don't have teammates. It doesn't mean that it's not going to go your way, but it's highly unlikely because you get this kind of service. This is Primozic, who is bottles. He doesn't need that many bottles, least of all one down his neck. Water carrier, especially when the days get a little bit hot, and we are starting to see some high cloud. The shadows have disappeared. There is a chance today of thunderstorms, but that doesn't mean that it takes away from the heat. We're in the centre of the African continent, in this landlocked nation at altitude, and we're talking about 26 Celsius as a maximum, but heavy humidity, and with the chance of thunderstorms. The calm before the storm, you might say, as you look around here at the vegetation, whether that be the palms, indeed the hedges, or indeed the cacti, the aloe vera. Yes, they're not moving at all, and as it stands, our pace today is a modest one. We're just underneath 42 kilometers per hour. This will get a little bit quicker. I've got a feeling that we won't see the full-on pace until we get possibly to the foot of Mount Kigali. We play with the rib, the Côte de Kigali, constantly within, of course, our small circuit here, but we do go on a longer loop. The definition of this longer loop, Brian, it's very, very tough, and I suspect that that's really where the first huge slice of attrition is going to be taken out of the main favourites today. We may lose a few at that point.
We may lose a few. It depends on whether they race it or not. It's the highest point, of course. The climb itself, 5.9 kilometres in length, 6.9 on average. So it's whether they want to play. I'm not too sure. Watching the World Championships last year in Zurich.
I mean, well, we have to see. It's my second elite World Championship, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a very hard course, and I think it suits me quite well. So I hope I have the legs to be here in the final.
Because you've been showing very impressive things these last few weeks. You have the shape.
Yeah, I think so. I think from the Worlds, I carried it here, and I hope it shows.
You like the course?
It is a really nice course, and I think the climb the elite do, which is the Mount Kigali, is going to be decisive. So I hope I think the race is gonna explode, and I hope I can be there at the front.
Well, he thinks it will be on Mount Kigali. Let's wait and see. It depends entirely on the complexion of the race, how it's been raced until that point. But it is potentially an axis upon which this race may pivot. Looking at the clouds, Brian, some of them look extraordinarily threatening. When we get to the high ground of the mountain itself, as opposed to the coat, the little bosses that we're dealing with as part of the short circuit, if we do get a thunderstorm, it depends on how heavy that is and how long it lasts, but it will really be surely something of a shock on such a long day.
100%, and especially on the cobbles and traction and all that. But you got to remember the Kigali, the Mount Kigali is about 100 kilometres from the finishing line. Last year, Pogacar went with just under 80 kilometres to go to the finish, and it looked at some point he was paying for those efforts. Still managed to kind of hang on. I really don't think we're going to see that today. It's such a hard course, this here in Kigali, that I think it could be a little bit kind of later. So yeah, they're kind of half expecting it. I'd still be very surprised if we saw Pogacar and some of the favourites really go for it. But then again, I was surprised by some of the riders that were up there earlier on. Del Toro was following moves, earlier on today at the start. So I think 100 kilometres in this sort of course is still going to be very, very difficult. And I think what Pogacar will do is definitely use his team. I still believe this will be a little bit kind of later, the development of the race, rather than last year when he went from just under 80 kilometres to go his first attack.
Well, it's all about Pogacar, of course, but Roglic, he might come into play. I'm not quite sure what the national management is going to be like. Roglic would love to be world champion, of course. And race too difficult for Matej Mohoric, I would have thought. Great classics man. Luka Mezgec as well. Having a classics mentality is something, but of course translating that to such a long day, it's a very, very long day. Brian, are you of the opinion that this is one of the toughest world championships that we have ever seen?
I can remember when I was growing up, the World Championships were in Salonche, and Bernardino just ground everybody to a pulp. I can remember watching that. because the commissaire in the car behind was Scottish, Arthur Campbell, and of course in that breakaway was a certain Robert Miller. So I was a young lad at the time watching that, and that was just an incredible course. Very few riders finished that year, and they're looking at this course today, and we heard from Alaphilippe thinking there'd be very few riders left. It's just going to be terrible, he said. So I think it will be really attritional today, and yeah, I agree that's one of the hardest ever courses that we've had for World Championships.
Brian, there is a sense as well that on occasion riders can ride themselves. I think I alluded to it earlier on. They can ride themselves into form on the day itself, especially on this kind of distance. Greg LeMond, notably, when he won for the second time, beat Sean Kelly in the Worlds. He described being absolutely empty and was declaring himself, and he was encouraged to stay with the race by Sean Kelly himself. Then he goes on and beats Sean Kelly in a sprint, to, of course, the great detriment of Sean. He never quite forgot it, and neither did I. I never forgot the anecdote, and let alone the action. But can you find yourself, even if you are struggling just a little bit? I'm trying to give myself some encouragement for Tom Pidcock, who's not looked great at the beginning here today. He looks uncomfortable. Can he find himself? I'm not asking you, will he? I'm saying, is it possible?
Yeah, look, you have to have the form coming in here, so it's not a form guide, it's a feeling guide. It's one of these situations where it's a long day. Everybody here's got good form, otherwise they wouldn't be here. So I think it's just a case of some races, and many of the races that I used to do, I used to prefer to feel not so good at the start. Because if you're not so good at the start, you think more about how you can conserve energy more than anything else, and you don't waste energy. The worst thing is when you do feel good, you waste energy, and it's about saving today.
This is the Kigali Genocide Memorial, just located not that far from the centre of Rwanda's capital city. And it is, of course, in commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. It came 10 years after that. Terrible time. And a reminder, really, of how dark the world can be. It doesn't matter where you are on this planet, and how, like Rwanda, you can indeed recognise it, acknowledge it, but also move on and indeed form something rather wonderful, which is Rwanda itself and Kigali. They have brought us this phenomenal festival, and despite the darkness of the past, it almost acts as a measure by which to experience and appreciate the joy that something like the World Championships can bring, without ever forgetting those who are departed within that darkness that was. We got ourselves a breakaway. It is, of course, the World Championships, the Men's Elite Road Race, here in Africa for the very first time. I've got a feeling we'll be coming back, which is something wonderful, and the love of cycling being spread around the planet. Right now, not much love being lost between these guys. 7 up the road. Raul Garcia Perna did make it over for Spain, and the teams represented up front have got some principles that might have a shout later on. Denmark, Anders Foldager has made the trip. They'll be thinking about Mathias Schelmoser. Great Ardennes rider, might suit him today. Julien Bernal is up the road for France. They will be hoping to slingshot someone like Pavel Sivakov, probably possibly Paul Seychelles, but they've lost Alaphilippe and Louis Barret, but they do have Bernard up front. Mano Wissing for the Netherlands. Short-handed team by some of their own standings of the past, but they have Tiemann Arensman and they also have Bolka Mollema. Ghana's John Britton, I'm afraid, no longer part of proceedings, but he's no shame in that. Unfortunately, we have lost quite a few. More on that in a moment. Back to our breakaway. Raul Garcia has made it up to the front for Spain. Spain, unfortunately, now without Marc Soler, leaving Juan Ayuso slightly hobbled, I would say, or majorly hobbled, I guess, without Marc Soler. But we'll have to rely on, indeed, the support of the entire team, who will be falling in behind Juan Ayuso, who has got himself a long contract over 5 years. I think it might even be 7 with Lidl Trek, which is great news for him. So a little bit of settlement, and he comes here with his gander up, which is great. Says he's on form after coming out of La Vuelta. Ivo Oliveira started the move for Portugal. He, I would say, is one of the favourites within that group. They've got Tiago Antunes, they've got Julião, and they also have Morgado. Strong team, Portugal, but a quarter of their number are up the road. Different rosters, different amount of personnel. Fabio Christian has made the trip for Switzerland. His namesake Jan Christian is also in the team, so is Mauro Smit and Mark Hershey. Any of those could be surprises today, and we've seen that surprises can win prizes. As we saw in the women's elite race, Switzerland looked to have really nailed themselves on for a medal in that race. Might happen today. Fabian Weiss, the rider, I didn't mention from Switzerland, but they have Fabio Christian up the road. So a Fabio and a Fabian. There we are. Maurus Meyerhofer of Germany. It would be a surprise if Germany were to thrive, but you never know. Meyerhofer, handy rider. Jonas Rusch, Jörg Zimmermann, who'll hope to be bringing it all back home and keeping it with a musical. Engelhardt Humperdinck. Felix Engelhardt is indeed also part of a 4-man German team. The rosters are varied. The biggest team here is Slovenia. The gift being you're allowed a maximum of 8, which has been brought by Belgium, also by Denmark, also by Great Britain, also by France. Their rosters, of course, diminishing. But as a world champion, Tadej Pogačar allowed to come here as well. So 9 for Slovenia, which seems a little bit unfair because they are so strong. When you look at Govetzka, Nezgets, Mohoric, Novak, Jaka Primožić, Primož Roglic, Matiš Zuma and Gal Glevar, as well as Tadej Pogačar himself, you realise just what an amazing force they are. Right now, they've not been forced to do too much chasing. Other teams have actually come and started to help out. The United States have been busy, but Quinn Simmons will be their secret weapon. The least secret weapon out there, other than, I think, Ireland's Ben Healy, who we know will have a go. It's a question of when and from how far out. What's Ben Healy going to do? Well, we know what he's going to do, but when's he going to do it, Brian?
Well, that's the question. He always goes from a distance, a problem for one of the riders here. I think it might have been a bit of a gear change on the corner there, but yeah, it's always a question of the unknown. Victor Campenaerts it was for Ben Healy. He does go from distance, so I think he'll choose. He is the sort of rider that could possibly use the Mount Kigali to his advantage. But looking at the front here, Carlton, it's interesting to see that Mexico are helping out. You've got 4 teams riding at the front. Belgium here with Vermeers. You've got Slovenia with Zuma. Barta there for the USA, but also adding into the mix one rider here from Mexico. Of course, they've got Del Toro. He could be a feature. He's come into these championships with great form. But the Belgians, they've got the numbers. Fortunately for them, they have got the numbers to be able to help Evenepoel. Unfortunately, they've lost Van Wilder in that crash that happened a couple of laps ago. But the race has really settled down now into the formula I think we've known from the past. But it just surprises me a little bit. to see that Mexico are riding. And just as I was saying, Barta, well, his day's done. The Mexican rider as well that was involved here, he's gone backwards in the cobbles. So Vermeers, following Vermeers, causing a little bit of concern for some of the riders that were already riding at the front.
Yeah, also concern, I guess, for Victor Campenaerts. Didn't look too flustered. He chucked a chain, made sure it was back where it needed to be. He was in the wrong gear, lifted up the saddle, spun the back wheel. Looked really kind of just a bit irked by it, rather than troubled too deeply. Lots of Australians peppered throughout the line here, and Campenaerts is making his way back in. Not too much fear by the pace that we've got for the time being. We're averaging just over 41.5 kilometres per hour for the day so far. Just over 42, I should say. Just updated my screen. Still got none too small matter of, what, 3 3/4 laps, 4 laps to complete, in fact, before we actually go downhill and then head out of town. So at 4 laps time, Brian, suddenly things are going to get very, very uncomfortable.
Well, they're uncomfortable for a lot of riders already. You know, Barta, that was already riding at the front for the USA, he's gone backwards. You can see that Florian Vermeers is putting a little bit of pressure on, even though that Campenaerts is in the cars trying to come back to the race. But a few of the riders, even Zuma for Slovenia, starting to get distances. Goveka is at the front for Slovenia now with Julian Vermeers. So Zuma is gone, Barta's gone, the Mexican rider is gone. So the pace is pretty decent on this cobble climb this time.
European mountain bikes champion, Tom Pidcock, and more than that, so the biggest success of his career was actually 3rd place in La Vuelta, proving to himself, apart from anything else, he's got the endurance to take on a Grand Tour. There's Evan Pol just coming through here with his golden helmet. Del Toro not that far away, and indeed Danny Boccaccia himself just coming up over the rise past this fan zone off the cobbles. Lots of checking over shoulders to see who is where. Denmark, that was Asbjørn Hjelmors just looking around. It'll be Skjelmors they're looking for. That's a wonderful shot, just showing you the roller coaster that we're dealing with. Sometimes of emotions, and sometimes, quite frankly, just a roller coaster of form, and just hoping that Tom Pidcock is not struggling too much. He's probably, it could be that he's just riding wise and just holding himself back and then delivering something deeper into the day, as Brian was pointing out a little bit earlier on. If you start the day on great form and you're all guns blazing, then there's only one way to go, and that's to have your form diminish through such a long run. I mean, it's what the riders are having to deal with. There's still 191 kilometres of the day remaining, and we're not that far off 2 hours of racing already. You talk about attrition, Brian, it's already happening, but this could be a very thin on the ground peloton by the end.
I think it will. The way things are going at the moment, and you know, to see the riders that were already riding at the front now disappearing off the back. You know, one was Will Barta. I still don't understand why the USA were riding, even with Barta. I don't think it made a huge difference, and I don't think they're too worried about the 7 riders that are in front. However, the 7 riders that are in front are from strong cycling nations. But just look at the lime green jerseys here. They're well in control of this. I possibly would have lent on them. If I was one of the national team managers, I would have lent on them more so than anybody else. But they do have some support from Belgium today. They did have USA and Mexico helping them out, but definitely they have got good support from Belgium, which comes from the coaches. The coach here, very respected, Serge Pauls. I know Serge pretty well, and you know, they've decided that, you know, they will support Evenepoel, and the best way to support them is to put a rider at the front to help Slovenia.
Ollie Knight just comes to the right-hand side of the road, gets himself a rear puncture exchange here, not wanting to swap bikes. Not that much pace in the day, and it may well be that it takes longer to get to his bike, because it won't be one of the principals. By that I mean, if you are one of the favoured riders, let's say somebody like Tom Pidcock, you are likely to have a spare bike on the edge of the car, which is very quick to get to. because at the pointy end of the race, if you do get yourself a puncture, it's easier just to get a new bike absolutely exactly to your requirements, size-wise, in every regard, off the car, and then you get back onto it. Riders do have their favoured bikes, however. Even if you do make an exchange for something that apparently looks exactly the same, it can be that you have a favoured bike and you'd quite like to get it back. Thank you very much. So call it luck, suspicion, you name it, but riders are so really dialed in to the geometry of their favourite bikes that even apparently exactly the same bike, one will feel better than another. Denge of Rwanda, one of those that has abandoned. If you find yourself 12 and 14 minutes off the front of the race, then you're going to be in trouble and you'll be gated, asked to leave the course. And we're seeing a lot of that happening. We're also seeing riders having left due to injury, I'm afraid, and sometimes sickness. Alaphilippe, who looked sprightly, possibly testing himself out, seeing how unwell he was, didn't like the answer he got, and he is off the bike. Others have departed due to injury with some touches of wheels. Campanazzi was part of an early animation. A potential caused so much panic and worry that it was a very busy start to the day, possibly down to this man.
Yeah, I think he was just marking things out. Nice to see Victor Campanus, such a family man. He's got his boy's picture on the top tube of his bike there, and I was in communication with him when he left the Vuelta with a little bit of sickness, and the day after he said, "Oh, my job's not done. I'm on daddy duty today," and he sent me a picture with his lad and his kids and one of these chairs, small, the small chairs and things like that, and he was looking after them. So his job never stopped.
Well, there's no better privilege than being a parent if you're lucky enough to be so. That's what you're here for. We're here for the World Championships in Africa for the first time, and the sunshine has come out between some clouds gathering for those who've done a lot of work early on, and Will Barter is taking a well-earned sit down. He's going for a nice
mu
drink.
busesenguzi
Ice water. No,
intambara yo ku
the old red
rucunshu
label, he says. And why not? Now a chance for these guys. These are Sierra Leone's. Well, wasn't it? Thinking about what might have been, well, what was is great representation by a whole raft of different riders. And Sierra Leone with Jello and Komora, we saw them both there, just taking in what they've achieved. And they have championships. You know what that's like, Brian?
Yes, indeed, and it's the first. I think maybe the stare was to the fact that they were playing ABBA, but at the end of the day, Sierra Leone was the.
I like ABBA. Back off.
I'll continue. Sierra Leone was, debuting here, and it's just the fact that they've got an opportunity to ride the World Championships. I think they have to be proud of that.
The winner takes it all is, of course, an ABBA track, Brian. You might have to bring a few more in before the end of today. So who's going to meet their Waterloo? That's what we want to know today. Stop now. France. I don't know. What about Pavel Sivakov? Let's dwell on a few, shall we, Brian? Sivakov comes into this race with a lot of plaudits.
Let me just have Sivakov. Second one, the mix really second in the Grand Prix Quebec. Apart from that, Tour of Britain 10th overall. So yeah, he's okay. 87th in the Tour de France. Of course, he was there working for his team leader Pogacar. So yeah, he's one of the riders that even last year he was. When Pogacar attacked, which 80 kilometres ago, he was the kind of last man or the rider that tried to go with him. I think with France having Bernard here, I think they knew that Alaphilippe wasn't possibly feeling that great, that Sivakov could be, a feature. But again, it's one of the other riders that rides for UAE Team Emirates. Where does his allegiance lie? We've seen this happen in many World Championships. But I think Sivakov definitely, France are here. I know Vauclair wouldn't want it any other way. He is the manager here for the French national team, and Thomas Vauclair will make sure that they all ride for France today.
I love Tommy Ross face pulling whenever he was on absolutely the limit. The tongue would come out, starting to lick at an invisible ice cream that was hung in front of him. Fantastic. Like a donkey turbo, I think you might say, which was hanging a carrot on a stick in front of a donkey, making it go faster. That old cartoon. Wasn't that from Winnie the Pooh? I think it might have been. But anyway, yeah, less literature. More poetry today, perhaps. 184.8 kilometres from home, and we've got to, 2 minutes and 39. Our breakaway's doing a good job of actually moderating the day. But we don't want moderation, we want action, and we're going to get plenty of that, I think, by the time we have completed 150. We're in about 30k's time. 2 more laps, Brian, and then we leave the city, and that'll be the first time that we have departed in these championships.
Yeah, exactly. The time trials were a little bit of kind of out and back, and then came on to the circuits, to the finish, and of course the circuits have
Umunyarwanda
been consistent
yaciye umugani ngo hazimuwa
in the road races that we've had, and it's kind of hard because normally you come to the World Championships, you kind of watch the other races, from the junior races, under 23s, the women's elite, and I think they've all been very different in their own unique way. So very difficult to see how this is going to kind of play out. But I think everybody knows that this is going to be super hard. It's we've already seen some riders at the start making, and some big riders making little bits of an effort. We've seen a crash and taking out a couple of key individuals.